You sure I'm not in the shot?
You're not in the shot.
Okay.
I mean, I would have you look over, but then you'd be in the shot and you would see
Okay.
yourself in the shot.
Yeah.
So I saw Joker, so you don't have to. And I'm visiting my friend and he's laughing at all of my jokes, which is probably going to make this not a very good quality video because there's this like yes man over here.
But also ironic given the film.
Oh, you mean like you're laughing because you have a neurological disorder that makes you laugh all the time?
Yeah.
I was like so uncomfortable watching the movie that I was like trying to convince myself it was so bad it was good, and I just laughed at everything that happened. This movie is going to be full of spoilers, by the way. Don't touch the bookcase because you could knock the phone off of it.
Okay.
It's like very precariously balanced there.
I love that you have me telling me off for the video. That's such a good portrayal of our relationship.
Yep. So the thing is, as you may know if you've been watching my videos a really long time, like 10 years ago, I'm from the US, obviously. I studied abroad in Scotland, and it was like kind of a traumatic experience because I think I didn't really realize like how much of a disability I had, and it was like studying abroad at like a big university and living in an apartment and stuff was kind of my first time trying to be independent, and I like really wasn't able to cope very well. And like the fact that I was in the UK made it like slightly worse. I promise you're not in the shot.
I'm not.
But you can move more if you're worried.
No, I'm just trying to look what is in the shot. So I'm ruining your video.
No, it's fine. Yeah, so like being in the UK made everything slightly worse because there's this weird uncanny valley sensation that like can be cool if you're excited, but like if you're feeling like slightly depressed in a foreign country, it can be really weird to be in a country where like the same language is spoken, but like everything is said in like a slightly different way, because like you feel like you should be able to get by because like you speak English, but like I don't know, there's so many like sort of slightly different terminologies for things or like slightly different ways of doing things that like after a while it can make you feel like everything is just slightly off. Anyway, as a result of having this YouTube channel, I met my best friend Josh, who lives in the UK, and I occasionally come to visit him, and like I'm visiting him right now, and we went to see Joker. And
we did.
What was your joke about why it was good to see Joker in the UK instead of the US?
Oh, this is problematic.
But it's true.
Okay. Well, it's better to see Joker in the UK than the US because there's much less likely to be a mass shooting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's true. So we went to see it, and like I've never walked out of a movie in my life, but even before I went to see it, I started to like realize like everything I'd heard about it, I had a feeling that I was going to be so disgusted by the movie that I was going to want to walk out. And so, like, also we decided to see it in IMAX, which was a really bad decision. Like, it was, like, so huge, and, like, it felt like we were constantly being zoomed into, like, Joaquin Phoenix's, like, nose and his, like, crotch and all these places that we, like, didn't want to be. And so, like, at a certain point, I didn't even have to pee, but I, like, pretended I had to pee, and I, like, panicked. I was like, Josh, get out of my way, I have to pee. And so, like...
You lied to me.
I had to pee a little, but I was, like, sort of exaggerating because I really wanted to leave, like, ASAP. So then I got up, and because of the way, I guess, British theaters are, which I didn't know, like, the doors wouldn't open for me. It's like there's an usher, and you have to get someone to let you out. So, like, I was already so freaked out, and I, like, felt like I was in a horror movie because I was, like, trying to open the doors, and, like, I couldn't get out. And, like... And then at the end, like, we were trying to stay to see if there was a post-credit scene, but since there's, like, an usher, you can't just, like, stay and do that. You're, like, standing there. And, like, this lady's there, and she, like, can't leave her job because you're, like, standing there waiting for the post-credit scene. So we, like, finally had to leave. Josh, you look very upset just remembering this experience.
Yeah. I felt really bad because we had to tell the usher that we didn't like the film. Well, I didn't have to.
I'm sure that, like, she didn't like it either. Like, she was like, oh, it was kind of an unusual superhero movie, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, here's my notes. This is a description of the entire movie, and then Josh will give, like, a real review. It wasn't... Josh thought it was bad. I, like, wasn't sure what to think. I was just so horrified and disgusted by it that, like, I found it, like, somewhat funny, and I was like, I guess this movie is kind of impressive because it's so disgusting and awful that, like, it's certainly having an effect on me. Okay. Starts off with the Joker putting on makeup really slow. He's a professional clown. He gets beat up by a bunch of kids, and then he lies on the ground in an alley, clinging to his own crotch, just, like, holding it, and, like, crying. Then it cuts to him in therapy, and he says something like, I think no crazy person has ever said, like, please, I really want some more medication. Please put me on more medications. And his therapist says, no, you're already on 7 medications. That's enough. Like, it has to be doing something. What a helpful therapist. And then she yells at him to, like, make her, like, be allowed to read his diary. And she starts reading it. And, like, the whole diary is just like, I wish I was dead. My life is horrible. And she doesn't even care. She just gives it back. So, like, why does she want to read it? And she's like, oh, do you remember when you were institutionalized? Why were you institutionalized? Really quick cut to him banging his head on a wall. And then, like, cut back to him in therapy. Some of the best scenes... Some cops are, like, interviewing him because he's killed a bunch of people. I think this was the point when I sort of started being able to handle the movie. Like, I was afraid the whole movie would just be him being, like, beaten, because he's violently beaten by, like, everyone he meets. At one point, Alec Baldwin as, like, Thomas Wayne. It was Alec Baldwin, right?
Is that Alec Baldwin?
Maybe I'm just wrong.
It might be Alex Baldwin. Maybe
Whoever that guy was suddenly punches him in the face. Like, random people just start beating him.
Yeah.
So I thought the whole movie was just going to be this, like, disabled man being, like, beaten constantly. And so, like, I mean, I already, like... you know, see so much of you, Josh, that, like, I don't need to see a movie about that. And so, like, that's when I was gonna walk out. But, like, when he went evil, I was kind of like, okay, I can deal with this. So the police are trying to, like, you know, interview him about the fact he's obviously a murderer. And they're like, oh, so the fact that you laugh all the time, are you doing that to be funny, or is it a neurological condition? And he's like, what do you think? He's, like, smoking. And he, like, turns around in a cool way to go through a door. But it was the exit door. And he, like, banged into it. In another scene, he was trying to get this file from, like, Brian Tyree Henry at, like, a mental hospital. And, like, he wouldn't give it to him. So, like, the Joker just bangs his head on this, like... divider, and Brian Tyree Henry was so startled that he let him take the file. By the way, the file was revealing to him that he was adopted and that he was abused by his mother's boyfriend. And the way he finds this out is that there's an old newspaper article, and the headline is, "Woman allowed her adopted son to be abused by her boyfriend." Now, why that was an article, I'm not sure.
Very specific. Subtlety is not this movie's strong point.
It also seemed very, like, victim blamey.
Yeah.
Because, like, it wasn't like this guy abused this kid. It was like, this woman allowed a man...
I just thought of, like, an explanation for... Maybe that's what he's seeing in his mind. Maybe that's what the Joker's seeing in, like, his mind.
I mean, I guess that's possible.
Maybe it's, like, it was, like, a more, like, professional headline, but his mind saw that, maybe.
Do you think his mind also saw that other headline that you liked so much?
Oh, what? Killing the Rich, a new movement, question mark.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so another great scene is he goes to the fridge, he takes bread out of the fridge, he throws
Amazing
it on the ground.
scene.
He takes more things out, he throws them. He takes all the dividers out of the fridge, he takes all the drawers out of the fridge, and then he climbs into the fridge and he shuts the door. Your joke was...
Oh, thank you. I thought you were going to steal my hilarious...
Oh, I can say it. Okay, Josh said this movie is very progressive because the man is being fridged instead of the woman. Okay.
Hey, Todd Phillips, who says you can't have woke comedy?
Oh, gosh. Oh, yeah, so Josh was explaining to me that Todd Phillips, the guy who directed
Is his
this
name
movie,
Todd Phillips?
is
I
that
think
right?
his name's Todd
You'll find
Phillips.
out. He also directed the Hangover movies, and he said that the reason he stopped doing comedy is because...
wokeness.
Yeah, because of wokeness, you can't do comedy anymore.
Yeah.
And then he made this movie, which was extremely funny, I thought. Sorry, what else do I got? Weirdly, despite this movie being edgy, something interesting I noticed is that they always show him killing men in a ton of graphic detail, but whenever he kills a woman, they don't actually show it.
But does he kill Zazie Beetz, though?
Oh yeah, sorry, that's a spoiler. Probably.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, but also, like, at the end, he probably was killing, like, the worker at the hospital, but they didn't show her being killed. And then also when he kills his mom, like, they sort of pan away.
Also, apologies if that's not how you pronounce her name.
I think that's right, because I saw that in another review, so at least we're, like, in good mispronunciation company.
Oh, good.
There was a very funny scene where he had painted his face white, and a bunch of dudes come in, and they're like, oh, why did you paint your face white? Are you going to this, like, clown-themed protest? A sentence I never want to hear again. And he was like, and he's just like, no. And they're like, oh, are you, like, do you have a clown gig? And he's like, no. And, like, I just think that would be really funny to do in real life.
Did you find out the name of the good actor?
When would I have found that out?
Oh, because you knew the name of the paperboy guy.
Yeah, but I just know his name. Well, will you look it up?
Okay. He was a very good actor, anyway.
Well, yeah, okay. There was this other scene where, like, the Joker kills this one dude, and then this other dude who's a little
It's
person.
the same scene. That's why I was mentioning it.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
The other dude who's a little person is going to be, like, allowed to leave because he didn't do anything bad to the Joker. And this was, like, one of the only genuinely scary moments. Like, he goes to leave, but because the door is locked, he's, like, too short to open it. And, like, for a second, you're like, this is, like, the only time I cared. I was, like, hiding behind my hands. And the dude, like, finally has to, like, ask the Joker, like, okay, can you please unlock me because I can't reach the lock, and he finally escapes. Anyway, Josh wanted to find his name because he liked him, and it's true.
You do edit these, right?
No, I don't edit them. I'm gonna keep talking, you look it up, then you tell me.
Okay, that I'm sure that's not how ContraPoints does it.
Wow, I'm not a professional YouTuber, Josh. This video is going to get, like, 5 likes.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I would say the most incel-y scene. I was like, oh, this movie isn't that incel-y. And then there's this fucking scene where the Joker gets on a talk show. He admits to being a killer, and he's just sitting there, and the dude is, like, interviewing him. He's like, oh, how come you're a killer? How come you decided to do all this? And the Joker's like, oh, let me explain. Let me explain, like, my entire MO. Like, what happens when you combine, like, a mentally ill person and a society that treats him really badly? And, like, he just goes on, and it's, like, exactly what every incel was, like, wishing for. He also uses werewolf as a verb. For some reason, he was like, why don't all of us just werewolf and decide to kill everyone? As somebody who enjoys werewolves, I didn't appreciate this. So what's the actor's name?
I can't find his name. But
Can I look?
apparently Thomas Wayne, originally Alec Baldwin, was cast as Thomas Wayne.
Dude, that other guy looked like Alec Baldwin. They tricked me into thinking it was the original
He's
casting
called
choice.
Brett Cullen. I don't.
He looks like Alec Baldwin.
Yeah.
One thing that was kind of cool, I've always had a thing for Frances Conroy, so I'm always happy to see her. Yeah, I was born too late, I guess, to get with Frances Conroy. But, I did think the stuff with her character was kind of cool. I mean, like, earlier in the movie, they sort of reveal that she was, like, crazy and that she thought that, like, Thomas Wayne was her son's dad when that wasn't the case. But then later in the movie, they sort of imply that it was all a conspiracy, but they don't really go into that. And I actually found both of those reveals to be, like, interesting and enjoyable. One funny moment, especially to me, given my kind of, like, surreal experience where I was, like, in the UK, this other thing that happens to me in the UK is I get really self-conscious about, like, having an American accent and, like, visibly not being from there. So there's, like, this one part in Joker where for, like, no reason, Josh, do not touch the bookcase, is that, like, it suddenly seems like, he just puts on a British accent and I can't even fucking remember why.
Oh, that was a bizarre little moment.
Why did he do that?
Hmm.
He was just, like, what did he say, even?
I don't know. I don't know.
It was just like, I'm going to be in a show tonight. It's going to be lovely. Oh, I've got a little gig. I'm going to do a little jig. Oh, and, like, he kept, like, dancing. Oh, wait. Okay. So, the first time he like, commits a murder, Josh is really excited about this.
Yeah.
The first time that he commits a murder, he's, like, in his clown makeup, and he goes to a bathroom, and you think he's going to wash off the makeup. Instead, he, like...
Eat your heart out, Jenny Nicholson.
Oh, wow. This actually is very easy to do. I forgot to put on my actual lips. Okay, so he, like, goes to the bathroom, he looks in the mirror, like, for no reason. He just is, like, doing this little dance. And, like, I don't understand, like, what was with this dance, but, like...
That's, like, the one scene I like.
He just kept doing this. I kind of liked it because it kind of made me think of, like, when you're really drunk, or you're in some kind of, like, surreal or, like, life-changing situation. Sometimes you go to the bathroom at the bar and, like, you look in the mirror and, like, you're like...
You're going to make fun of me, but I thought it was kind of a beautiful sequence.
It was good, but then you said you didn't like any of the other scenes where he danced.
No, all the other dancing scenes were just cheesy and cliche, but, like, I think that one scene where he danced in the bathroom was kind of beautiful. I think the music and how it was shot and Joaquin's performance, I liked it.
Oh, so a problem he had in the movie was that, like, he lived at the top of this really tall flight of stairs, and I felt like that's probably why he was so angry.
Amanda?
Yeah?
Why so serious?
So it seemed like, it seemed kind of annoying that he had to walk up this really tall flight of stairs, and I felt that I would be annoyed by it if I was him. But there's this like late scene where these like detectives keep pursuing him, and so he's like at the top of the stairs, and he's decided he's gonna kill all these people or whatever, and he's like dressed up in this fancy suit, and he's just killed all these people, and he's like dressed up as the Joker, and he's dyed his hair green, which is impossible to do without dyeing your hair blonde first, but I guess they didn't know that because that always happens in movies. As somebody that used to dye my hair, I know how it works if you have dark hair, and this did not seem realistic. This was the one thing in the movie that was so unrealistic.
The rest of the film was like full on like, you know, social realism.
So he gets to the top of the stairs, he starts slowly dancing down the stairs with all his makeup and shit on, and then on the top of the stairs, like, the detectives appear, and they're like, hey, wait, we have to interview you, and he, like, runs away. I think that was probably the funniest scene. I think that's pretty much all my comments. I actually, like, didn't super have an opinion. Like, I was like, this is really fucking, like, weird and disturbing. It's, like, definitely having an effect on me. I'm not sure what to think, but I guess, like, this movie is doing something. But Josh...
Yeah, hello.
Tell me what you think. You have more of an opinion.
I sound very pompous, but I think it lacked all imagination, subtlety, and moral sense.
Okay.
Which the typical pompous British person.
You want to go into that anymore?
I don't know. I thought it was about the most boring origin you could get for the Joker. I really think it was like, I don't know, like, you know, the whole thing like the Joker not having an origin and the whole thing in The Dark Knight where he's got all those different fake origins. It was the most boring thing to do with that character is how his people bullied him and society, he was a misfit and it gave him sads. I just found it a very boring take on a very interesting character in other incarnations. And I don't know, I think it had kind of mixed messages because I think it was trying to... you definitely see that this film was like an incel's fantasy. I don't think that take is wrong. But I think that came more out of stupidity on the filmmaker's take than like any sort of malice. Because I think they were genuinely trying to like make a comment on how like the media makes mass shooters and killers like stars. But I think it was just done so poorly.
Yeah, like that is smart, and I did not think of that at all while I was watching the movie.
But I think it was... I just think it was kind of... I think that aspect of it was badly done because I think it was so far unrealistic that like I thought maybe it's like a metaphor for how the media makes killers into stars because it's so like far fetched, you know.
Yeah.
And I think it's... I don't know. I found that aspect of it kind of weak. I think it was maybe had good intentions in that case, but I don't know. Like one criticism I have had of it, and which I kind of changed my mind on because I think maybe it was deliberate, was the Joker when he goes to have the appearance on the talk show and everything, and the kind of, you know, the whole King of Comedy rip-off aspect of the film.
Josh was explaining to me that the movie was an homage to King of Comedy, which I haven't seen. But once you described that, it made the movie seem so much worse because it was just a bad version of something else, apparently.
Yeah, well, Scorsese, who was the producer of this movie and director, and it was. I feel like because the Joker says he's not political. But he, you know, then goes on a long political rant about why he does what he does. So I'm like, is that a contradiction? But then I thought, maybe the Joker's just saying that on TV, spoiler alert. Maybe he's just saying that on TV to incite people to riot. Maybe that's, you know, not actually his thoughts, just like what he wanted to do to make people, you know, riot is what he wanted just for the... Because I don't know, I see the Joker as a guy kind of without an agenda, I suppose. I mean, I guess that's how they played the Heath Ledger character anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just thought it was about the most boring thing you could have done with the character of the Joker to just... And I feel like for somebody who's like complained about like woke culture, I think he's gone and made like the most victim culture movie I've ever seen.
Oh, I was gonna say, I didn't think the movie was that like alt-right necessarily because it did seem like... But, like, the whole disability angle, like, it's true that, like, I feel like in a way, like, disability is neither, like, a right-wing or a left-wing issue. Yeah. But I feel like I'm not going to be smart enough to talk about that. But, you know, it is interesting that, like, the movie is being associated with, like, incels and the alt-right, but it is about how, like, he and his mom are, like, poor and disabled and they're not receiving services and stuff like that. Like, what are you supposed to take out of this movie?
That's what I mean. I think it was, like... I think for a movie that's it's obviously trying to be like a little more like thoughtful and idea driven than your average like comic book film.
Yeah.
But none of the ideas made the slightest shred of sense. I don't know what you're supposed to come out of it thinking. And when something's that ideologically incoherent, I just think there's clearly no ideology. It's clearly just they threw a load of cultural zeitgeist things at the wall and saw what stuck.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the obsession is with in the Batman movies with like a populist left-wing uprising.
Yeah.
You know, violent populist. It's the same as like the Dark Knight Rises, and I don't know. I feel like it's really to be fair, like more of that, you know, violent uprisings. It's more of like a right-wing incel type thing.
Yeah, that's what you've been saying.
And I'm not saying that like left-wing people can't be
Yeah.
violent jerks or whatever,
But it is interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that is our review. Don't go and see this movie. It was a big disappointment to us. And I even, like, I was going to see it because I thought it would be so bad it was good, but I'm not sure it even quite got to that point.